might remember me, but here are some...
Hello. Students from across the region have been taking part in today's mass rally in London, protesting against the rise in tuition fees. As you may have seen, trouble flared in Westminster and the situation is only now calming down.
Coachloads of students set off early this morning, expecting to be part of a peaceful demo outside Parliament. Look East reporter Felicity Simper spent the day with students from the University of Essex, and she's in Chelmsford now.
Yes, well, Stuart, it was an early start for those students at the University of Essex this morning. There were 6 coaches filled with 300 students all travelling into the capital to join thousands of others on this march. They say they're angry at the Liberal Democrats apparently going back on their pledge not to raise tuition fees.
The beginning of a potentially historical day. And as the number of banners and placards grew at the campus, so did the expectation of joining tens of thousands of others in the capital.
We think 20,000 students marching through the streets of central London can change the mind of 4 MPs.
As the finishing touches were added during the journey, there was just time to warm up the vocal cords.
No!
And there was no chance their views wouldn't be heard. Joining thousands of others in Whitehall, the demonstration began.
If we don't demonstrate, how are people going to hear us? No one listens to us anymore, so we've got to demonstrate so they can actually hear us.
There's so many other ways they can do it. There's taxes, there's everything else. It hasn't got to be like, we're the brokest of everyone in the country anyway. We shouldn't have to be paying more.
The protest today, students say, is about protecting the right to education. Some students who are already nearly £30,000 in debt say it's already expensive enough. And although there's a deficit that needs filling, rising tuition fees would stop many doing degrees in the future.
There's a deficit that needs to be dealt with, but I don't think that by stopping investing in our future, in the future of our country, is the way to do it. And also, the cuts aren't going to affect the richest people, they're going to be affecting the poor people.
As the protests moved closer to the Houses of Parliament, those from Essex decided it was time to try and slow things up.
The people who are making these changes are people who've enjoyed the privileges of free education. They have never paid for free and higher education, and they're trying to make future generations pay.
But further down at Millbank, things turned ugly. A protest that began with a party-like atmosphere turned sour when students invaded the Conservative headquarters. But those from Essex tell us they weren't involved. They're hoping that a day they'll never forget, a day that saw thousands march through the capital, will help secure the chance for others to experience student life as they have.
Well, as you've been hearing, there were a small number of protesters who lit fires and smashed windows, but the National Union of Students has been quick to condemn that violence, and they've said that it's a small minority who've hijacked what should have been a peaceful march. And as for those in Essex, well, they say they're just really pleased that they managed to take part in what is such a historical event.
Felicity, thank you very much.
The company behind an ambitious scheme to transform Great Yarmouth into a container port has spent the day defending its decision to scrap the project. Bosses said the global slump in the freight industry had wrecked their hopes of rivalling the port of Felixstowe. The firm now intends to pursue an alternative business plan with the growing offshore energy industry. Let's get the details now from Alex Dunlop, who is in Great Yarmouth.
Well, Susie, many businesses crash on the rocks, don't they? And we don't tend to hear a lot about them. But when your failed venture is symbolised by 2 massive brand new cranes like these that have sat on the quayside for 18 months doing absolutely nothing, then that's bound to raise, perhaps unfairly, a lot of scrutiny. Now, these cranes are worth £3.5 million apiece. At some point in the near future, they'll be uprooted, put on a barge and sent away. And with them will go any chance of container traffic coming to Great Yarmouth for the foreseeable future.
Testament to the collapse in container traffic. These leviathans once symbolised hope for Great Yarmouth, not anymore. Nearby, the port's boss told me he was far from embarrassed.
We've had grown-up discussions with our tenant. We have agreed to suspend the operation, and that is based on the economic climate that we face at this moment in time.
But the cranes were brought in 18 months ago. Surely someone could have seen this coming.
I don't think so. The lead time for cranes is a long time anyway. They were probably a 2-year lead time on the cranes.
Plans for the outer harbour were first submitted in 1986. The go-ahead was given in May 2007 and work started the following month. 2 years later, the cranes arrived. But yesterday afternoon, the announcement was made. The container terminal is to close. In the town, clear dismay at the news.
All the money they've invested in building the outer harbour, all the job prospects, potential for it, and that they're just going to pack up and leave.
It's supposed to be a big project, and all the project's going to be gone now. A lot of money that must have cost.
The container terminal was a private sector investment and loss, but millions of pounds of public money went into the construction of the overall harbour.
£18 million of public money has been poured into this outer harbour. Are they going to see a return on that money? Is this money well spent?
They're already seeing a return on their money.
Despite the container traffic going?
Despite the container traffic going. £18 million to get this project away now has got to be the bargain of a lifetime.
So what future for the port? Today the town's MP told the Commons that Great Yarmouth has a big role to play in renewable energy.
Will he and the government support our work to ensure that East Anglia gets a fair and even opportunity to bid for the opportunities this new market could provide?
As well as looking to service the region's offshore wind farms, the port does deal with other shipping traffic, from aggregates to agriculture.
We operate probably on 4 or 5 legs, and obviously if one goes, it creates a vacuum, but then we fill it. Otherwise, we'd be still here wanting to load coal onto the Titanic. The world moves on, trade moves on, we move on.
Now, needless to say, this is a real body blow for Great Yarmouth. This is an economically deprived area in real need of jobs and inward investment. But the bosses here are optimistic. The chief exec told me himself, he said, look, come back here in a couple of years and I will show you a pretty successful port. We look forward to his invite.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Well, Richard Bond, our business correspondent, is with us. They say they're not embarrassed, but it is embarrassing, isn't it?
It's a very public U-turn, and of course there have been other disappointments. When the Outer Harbour was being campaigned for many years ago, we were told it would bring a ferry service to Yarmouth, hundreds of jobs. That hasn't happened. When the container terminal was added, we were told it would handle tens of thousands of containers every year. It hasn't handled even one, so it's disappointing.
So why has it all gone wrong?
Well, I think there are those who say that there was never a proper business plan for the Outer Harbour to be built at all, and they say it was wrong to use public money and it was built for political reasons. Now, that having been said, I think it was really rotten luck that when it did open, it happened to coincide with world trade falling off a cliff.
Now, we've had all these promises down the years that you've highlighted. They now say that 2 years from now we'll see that renewables off our coast will be the saviour of Great Yarmouth. Do we believe that?
Well, there is huge potential there. With all these new wind farms planned off our coast, Yarmouth could become a genuine hub for that. And if that happens, and if in a couple of years, you know, the port is humming, hundreds of workers are involved in and around the port in offshore wind farm work, then I think people will say, yes, it was worth building this outer harbour.
But there's a big if that you keep putting in all of that answer.
Many a slip between cup and lip.
Richard, thank you very much indeed.